Hello and welcome again to another edition of the Osteopathic Lyceum podcast. Continuing on with historical sources, I'm going to go back into the reminiscences of Ernest Eckford Tucker, or E. E. Tucker. Tucker, as I continue to read along, is doing what I think is a pretty honest job of attempting to situate Dr. Still with respect to his knowledge of Dr. Still's experiences and his viewpoints on things, and then also bring that through the career that he's had. So in 1952, Tucker had probably had an osteopathic career in the range of somewhere between 40 and 50 years. So he had worked for quite some time in healthcare, in treating. So he also had seen a lot of advances in essentially the allopathic field, right? So I'm going to read through this to attempt to try to bring this all together and also point to something that I've been attempting to say, that early osteopathic practitioners knew that osteopathy had limits, still knew that osteopathy had limits. One of the things he would say, at least my memory suggests he would say, is if I get them in enough time, so if I get the patient in enough time or in an appropriate time frame, I can do certain things, but beyond a certain time frame, I can't necessarily change a structure that has fundamentally changed. So I'm going to read and provide commentary as I often do. This is, again, from 1952. This particular resource can be found on the Museum of Osteopathic History when you look at the historical collection, a bunch of books and journals and whatnot. This is the Charles E. Still collection. It's the first one you can click on. So again, to read. During the Civil War, Still was an army surgeon. Cannonballs are no respecters of anatomy. And again, we get an effect of a bold approach, a factual, practical, real, direct, and individual approach, even a mechanical one. That too may have played its part. So just to situate some things, I think there may be reason to have a broader discussion about Dr. Still during the Civil War. I think my general memory says there may be some inaccuracy here, but that's neither here nor there. It's just to say that Dr. Still was involved in the Civil War. One of the things that you can see if you go to the Museum of Osteopathic History and you look at the in-person collections, there is an artillery shell. That artillery shell was gifted to Dr. Still. It's an unexploded artillery shell. I don't remember if it was from a battle that he was a part of or it was from another battle, but either way, there are pictures of Dr. Still leaning on the unexploded artillery shell at the bottom of the stairs on his porch, right? So to show a sense of humor and to show that there's continuity of that particular shell in its physical location in Kirksville from Dr. Still's hand being on it to it currently being in the Museum of Osteopathic History. So the simplest thing to note here is that Dr. Still definitely saw some stuff in the Civil War. He was in battle. To continue to read or to go back to reading, but his experience with the practices of his day led to vast frustration. The medicines did not work as desired. They did not work helpfully. They did work in reverse. Okay, so there's some handwriting here. So there's certain times in this manuscript where there's handwriting and it's not necessarily the easiest for me to read just because of size and style. Continuing to read, he became a rebel. Was it honesty or was it religious respect for the works of his creator? Or was it shame at the pretense he was practicing? Or was it rage at the futility of it? To come out of the reading, another thing to keep in mind is that Dr. Still did lose family members to infection. He said spinal meningitis. It may have been something else. That, again, is neither here nor there. The medical profession, the allopathic profession that Still was practicing and that Still had some faith in, was not able to save his own family. He had the experiences in the Civil War. These things gave him pause. They were very frustrating, as Tucker notes. To read again, this is a quote from Dr. Still, or several in a row. Does the body have intelligence? Should we not treat it according to its intelligence? By what right or what law or what creed do we ignorantly interfere with the workings of that so perfect machine? He abandoned drugs, obtained a divorce. If not drugs, what? I began to study the body as a mechanic. From the first, this netted him certain results, the first positive results. So, to come out of the reading, one of the things that Tucker's pointing to Still had a change in viewpoint. He displayed faith, or what I would term a belief in something that could not currently be observed. He started to look at the body as a mechanic, the other people's body as a mechanic or as an engineer would. He found mechanical discord, he interfaced with it, and he started to get positive results. So he had a hypothesis, he made a prediction, he experimented, he got some positive results, he learned from those results, he experimented again. That is the scientific method. It's the scientific method in practice. It is maybe a little bit messier than one would hope it is, but the scientific method ends up being somewhat messy, regardless of how it's reported. To go back to reading, in the light and strength of this, he then spent the rest of his life studying the body's mechanics, studying the body as an engineer, to detect the factors of mechanical disorder and of strain that might obtain there. When I knew him, he was studying the hemular process and the acromion and the diaphragm and was living in the liver. So there are reports of Dr. Still, camping in the liver. It was almost like, maybe in modern terms, he was method acting these body parts. He was inhabiting them. He was being them. He wasn't thinking about them. He was attempting to feel as if he was them. At least that's what I've seen reported. To read again, will ever another student of the living body be so bemused with the subject, so swallowed up in it, so thoroughly reverent, not an emotional reverence, but a very practical intellectual respect? I doubt it. Much of his study, as recorded, is speculative. So I want to pause there. I've talked about how the writings of early osteopathic practitioners are best interpreted with low confidence. The way that they wrote things down, the way that they reported things, it makes it hard to observe, it makes it hard to reproduce, which means that your confidence should drop. Now, if you can find a way to reproduce it and you get the same results with high levels of consistency, then that's fantastic. So when I say that one would benefit from lowering their confidence in interpreting what early osteopathic practitioners wrote, I'm not saying they were wrong. I'm saying there's reasons for your confidence in the accuracy of their claims to be low. Again, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means your confidence should be downgraded, or you would benefit from your confidence being downgraded. To go back to I've spoken about this before in some way, shape, or form. Dr. Still talks about osteopathy still being at its short tide. He talks about not writing things down exceptionally accurately. He talks about, I quote no author but God and experience. So, kind of hard to directly quote God. Not that hard to quote your experience, but he's setting up how he's epistemologically, or a theory of knowledge creation, theory of truth, what can be known, how can it be known, and who can it be known by. He's setting this up, telling you that it's like, this is kind of what I remember off the top of my head. Here you go. This is what I have to say. So still, if you look at philosophy of osteopathy, philosophy of mechanical principles, it's mostly just waxing poetic. He is essentially giving a written description of living in the liver, of being the acromion, stuff like that. So you get some taste of what Tucker is talking about when you read philosophy of osteopathy and philosophy of mechanical principles. In osteopathy research and practice, Dr. Still does give some practical, technical descriptions that I would describe as missing key information from time to time, but you still get the waxing poetic about the anatomy. So we've got Tucker being honest about Still's writings and them being speculative as they were written. To read again, most of it has been outdated and outmoded by the advances being made everywhere. So Tucker just immediately notes, after saying that what Dr. Still wrote was speculative as it stood in print, that there are advances at the time of 1952 that had kind of outmoded and outdated what Dr. Still was talking about. To go back to reading, I am reluctant to admit it, but much of it was much more dramatic than valuable. Tucker is admitting or describing that he had high reverence for Dr. Still, and that the specific written words in his experience as a practitioner of somewhere between 40 and 50 years, because I don't remember when Tucker graduated, so that's why I say between 40 and 50 years. Tucker is admitting that there was a lot of drama in what Still wrote, but the value of it was lower than one would want. Okay, so I go back to read. My hero-worshipping mood suffered many punctures on rereading his books, but in its place came a much higher human estimate of the mind and spirit that, alone and against a world, did not so minutely explore the human organism from an entirely new point of view and bring to light so much that was revolutionary and basic. So Tucker is pointing to a conceptual shift that he sees value in that Dr. Still had. The details of what Dr. Still said, Tucker is downgrading as I would downgrade. Now, I hadn't read this from Tucker prior to now, or really prior to today, the date of recording this. This is the first time I saw it. So the things that I've said precede me reading this. The challenge in reading this for me and repeating it is that it lines up with what I have said based on other rationale prior. So it makes it very easy for this to be confirmation, or like to be described as a confirmation bias. So if there's an error in the way I'm interpreting this, it's because I can't tell the error is there. And I'm admitting that there could be a blind spot. But at least this lines up with things that I've said based on my own observations of osteopathic writing, osteopathic history, how osteopathy seems to function in practice, the updated, even from 1952, information that I have access to that Tucker didn't. All of these things kind of come together for what Tucker's message is to line up well upon my discovering it with messages that I've delivered prior. So I've said this stuff in a lot of ways. I've had this experience in a lot of ways, although he knew Still, and there's absolutely no way I could have known Still. I was born in 1981. Still died in 1917, so there's a bit of time between those things. I couldn't have possibly known him, but the experience that Tucker seems to be describing is one that I've had via interrogating historical materials, becoming a practitioner, working as a practitioner, working as an educator. This is sort of the experience that I've had. To go back to reading again, the thing that Tucker is saying, again, I'm just putting maybe some extra filler words in here, but to read this, he did in fact reverse the orientation and studies of that body. In the end, that may come to be regarded as the real revolutionary contribution that he will have made. Materia medica means things used to affect the body from outside and compulsively. Osteopathy means correction of disorders found in the body itself. So Still talks about, the internal pharmacopoeia. That may be over-indexing on what the body can do on its own compared to something taken from the outside of the body, put in as essentially an instruction template. There are 100% challenges with medications in many cases. There also are great successes with medications in many cases, so one should take a balanced view of that. Dr. Still was talking about trying to mechanically get the body to do the best it can. So when I say that the fundamental assumption of osteopathy is there are mechanical relationships between health and disease states, you could maybe reword that to say when the mechanical disruption is altered, the body is able to apply its healing mechanism more effectively, with the caveat that if the mechanical dysfunction is the reason the body is not applying its current healing mechanisms appropriately, then it will work. If not, then you need to look down another angle. So Tucker understood that there were limits to manual osteopathy. I think Dr. Still understood it to some degree. Dr. Still spoke with a lot of vim and vigor, with a lot of high-minded conceptual ideas based on his understanding of anatomy. Tucker experientially suggests that when he rereads the books that Dr. Still wrote, he kind of has to downgrade that his hero worship has been punctured. I'm probably misquoting that, but those are terms that he's utilized in what I've read. So lowering the level of confidence in what early osteopathic practitioners wrote has value, as displayed by Tucker as an early osteopathic practitioner who worked consistently for somewhere between 40 and 50 years. I'm not 100% sure how long he treated for, but he definitely treated hands-on. He experienced this, he saw other things around him, he upgraded his knowledge, he looked back at historical material that he was a part of or in a time that he was a part of, and he altered his opinion. So if Tucker experienced it firsthand, and it seems as though I've had what could be interpreted as a similar experience interrogating historical documentation, then there may be value in saying that's worth considering. So early osteopathic practitioners did fantastic work. In earnest, they were doing things for the right reasons. They were trying to minimize the harms of ingested materials or materials put into the body, whether that be through the digestive tract, somehow through injection, through topical creams across time, however that happened, through aerosol, whatever means of delivery that you'd like to talk about. They were trying to minimize those harms. Now, one of the things is that the level of technology that they had and the things that had happened up until that time made it harder for medicine or pharmaceutical products to be the quality that they are today. Now, that quality may be mixed. You may have a variety of views on that. That's totally fine. But at the point that Dr. Still was discovering osteopathy, at the point that the earlier practitioners were also doing the same, the use of medicine or the use of ingested material or materials put into the body from the outside was not what it is currently. So the idea would be, if you could avoid that at all costs and really bring out the healing power that the body has, you'd probably be at much less risk. So one of the things that osteopathy likely presents is a much lower risk intervention than some form of product put into the body to alter how the body is functioning, at least temporarily. However, there may be lower power with respect to outcomes. So, we want to consider that. Again, the main point of reading this is that E.E. Tucker downgraded his confidence in some of the claims of early osteopathy through experience and through reflection. And that mirrors things that I have come to prior to reading this. So there's a parallel track maybe, or a converging track based on me looking at the materials that I've looked at, based on Tucker having the direct firsthand experience with most of these things. Take from that what you will. Thank you for listening this far, and I hope to talk to you again soon.